I guess after we kind of took a step back and looked at the results that we had, everybody felt instantly like, our A&R from our previous label who we've kept in touch with, Monty Connor, we just always talk to him. And, we send stuff out to label people or to industry people, like, what do you think? And everyone basically said, this is the song you guys should put out first. So that was I guess, of the three, that was the best we felt that we had written, but we hadn't written anything else besides those three. But yeah, that song is essentially about not giving up and just persevering and coming back after a 14-year hiatus. I think it's a pretty, pretty perfect statement. I think, it speaks for itself.
Back from a 14-year hiatus and how? Welcome everyone to the Trendcrusher podcast. This episode, I got a chance to speak to Sean from Dååth. We talk about their album that's out today, The Deceivers. They're back after a hiatus, and it doesn't really seem like they took a long break. To warm you up for this episode, I've got a track from Terminal Nation, the latest album from the metallic hardcore act Echoes of the Devil's Den, is out today via $20 spin. It's a slamming album. I've really enjoyed listening to it, and here's one of the tracks I really enjoyed from the album, Merchants of Bloodshed. It features one of my favorite metal vocalists, Jesse Leach from Killswitch. Here it is.
Merchants of bloodshed,
And that was Terminal Nation with Merchants of Bloodshed featuring Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage. If you enjoyed that track, definitely check out the rest of the album, Echoes of the Devil's Den. It's really, really good. And of course, it's on $20 spin, so you know I'm going to back that. Now on to today's episode. As I mentioned, I had a chat with Sean from Dååth. Their latest album, The Deceivers, is out today via Metal Blade Records. If you're a fan of progressive music and death metal, you will really enjoy this album. Here's a deep dive into the entire album. We spoke about not only the writing process for the album, the new band members, and a lot more about their future plans. Here's my chat with Sean. Hi, Sean. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it doing? How's it going?
And I have to also add is welcome back, because it's been a while. And I think by the end of this entire press run, you're going to be tired of kind of hearing that, but just getting that out of the way.
That's okay. Hey, welcome back, man. It's, one of the tracks on the record, one of my favorite songs, Unwelcome Return. It's kind of a funny, I guess, how do you do, so to speak, like we're hoping that people will welcome us back, but there was always that fear of being unwelcomed.
Okay. I mean, it's strange that you say that, right? Because, and this was actually going to be a question I wanted to ask later. But the first taste actually of that returning we got last year with the single No Rest, No End. I mean, while we can talk about the song and the reaction and everything, what I want to understand was, from a band perspective, was that going to be that, hey, let's put the single out, let's see the response to it, and then figure out an album? Or you were already on a writing spree and decided, let's put this out first just to like give everyone a taste?
So we had originally talked about, obviously taking Dååth or bringing Dååth back and, making it the best it could possibly be. So when we were kind of piecing everything together, and we were obviously picking new members, because we did have conversations with the old members. Just a lot of them have family and just things it just couldn't work out for them, unfortunately. So we decided when we got in the new guys, let's just write one song. And then one song turned into two, which turned into three. So we did write three songs. And I guess after we kind of took a step back and looked at the results that we had, everybody felt instantly our A&R from our previous label, who we've kept in touch with, Monty Connor, we just always talk to him, and we send stuff out to label people or to industry people, like, what do you think? And everyone basically said, this is the song you guys should put out first. So that was I guess, of the three, that was the best we felt that we had written, but we hadn't written anything else besides those three. But yeah, that song is essentially about not giving up and just persevering and coming back after a 14-year hiatus. I think it's a pretty perfect statement. I think, it speaks for itself.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said hiatus, right? Because a band I grew up listening to, the Eagles, there's a famous quote they say, right? In one of their things.
I know.
It's like, yeah. Go for it. I'd love to hear
because Glenn Fry and Don Henley had been asked the question, what would you do to get back to play with them? And I believe it was Don Henley that said it. And he said, hell would have to freeze over. So then they had the Hell Freezes Over tour, which I went on. I was on that tour.
No way. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that would have been 90, that would have been 94, 95.
Wow.
Yeah, I went to see that. Yeah.
Okay. No amount of research would have prepped me for that, but that's just a happy coincidence I'd put it down to. And it's interesting, right? Because the press release kind of talks about a call that your guitarist A.R. Levy made during the pandemic on kind of restarting Dååth, and it also mentioned that you've been waiting for that call. How was that kind of just like from that call to working on Deceivers? Like, was it kind of like muscle?
Sorry, no, muscle memory. Yeah, no. So I've been doing music ever since I left Dååth. I mean, when we left to go do Chimera.
Yeah.
And AL got busy doing stuff, and I mean, we even made a record with Chimera, and then I went on and continued to do several other bands, several other albums, I guess so to speak. So I always had that itch. I'd tour and I'd see people on tour saying, "When's Doc gonna come back?" Even Chimera tours, I would always be people with Doc merch or swag. Every signing, there'd always be someone with something Doc to sign, which kind of tripped me out, because I'm there. I'm just completely associated with Doc at that point because I had just fully invested in Chimera and, even this Insanum stuff, I would see people come out on the tours and bring Doc stuff. So it was always in my head that I definitely was ready for that call as soon as he was ready because we did speak about it. I don't know, probably 7 years prior to when it happened. Just kind of, hey man, we should do it. Like, yeah, we should totally do it. Like, let's not forget it and let's put a pin in that. And I guess it took until 2021. I think is actually when we started to kind of do this.
Okay, and you mentioned the newer members, right? Because it is quite a stacked lineup. I mean, your drummer Krim is like fucking easily nothing short of a beast.
Oh
And
no, yeah,
yeah, in the last, I think like what 10 to 15 years, he's played on some of like the most insane, whether it's black or death metal albums. You've got Jesse Zuretti, you've got Rafael Trujillo, which is another beast, if I may say, and you've got David Magalio. How did all of them kind of like get together? Because I'm sure, like you said, right, you wanted to get the older members back, but then how did all of them kind of fit and kind of piece together, which now we know as the latest lineup of Daath?
So AL and I had spoken about reforming the band, and we did actually call the old members. We actually started to write music with them. It's just it was really hard to get them, on the same page just because their lives had kind of taken over a bit and they got busy. And like I said, Kevin has kids now, and it's just they kind of lost interest because of the outside activities of life. So obviously the first step, we have the guitar player, we have the main writer, we have the vocalist, which is myself. The next step is we need a drummer. So we spoke about trying to find a drummer, and we had kind of felt around and we had kind of asked around, and Krim was one of the first ones to say, yeah. I guess he was a fan, and we said we were just going to write a couple songs, like I had said, and then from there we needed a lead player to kind of fill the shoes of Emil because they had already been writing and they needed someone to kind of play some leads and also contribute to writing leads. So Krim actually suggested Raphael because he is a fellow Austrian. He's like, I know this other Austrian guy. We should get him in the band. So we obviously saw he's just amazing. And so, yeah, we got him in the band. And then last but not least, yeah, we needed a bass player. And Dave was the perfect option for that. And then Jesse, I think AL and Jesse had been friends for a while, and he kind of had always been behind the scenes. But how intricate this music is, you kind of need all hands on deck. Jesse even helped write some guitar stuff. He did obviously all the orchestration, all the little cool sound effects, and any kind of electronic elements Jesse basically added. So I think all of them fit the piece perfectly. I mean, honestly, it's almost like they were always here.
Okay, and I'm also very curious about this quote, and it's uh, attributed to AL, but I probably you can kind of just shed some light on it, where he says, and I quote, "We're doing all those things I felt we were missing in the past." Uh,
Yes.
I mean, I'm guessing part of it is the electronic bits and the orchestration bits, but uh,
No,
if you
we
could,
always had those. They were always there. They were more hidden.
hmm,
Like if you listen to the concealers, like listen to the ends of tracks or the interludes or the transitions, there was always like a little of an electronic element or some little thing like what's the song I'm thinking of? Mm, is it Translucent Potency? The end of? It has a real kind of like broken record kind of feel. I mean, there was always some sort of sample element to Dååth. And then on the self-titled record, there actually was a little bit of organs and some keys, very, very hidden, very blended. And I think there was actually a bonus track that was kind of an electronic track. But yeah, we've always kind of had those elements baked in. I mean, "Dead on the Dance Floor" was an electronic song, so they've always kind of been there. We just decided to go full on and actually just do it right if we were going to do it, and then that's what we felt with the rest of the record. It all needed to be done right. I had personal demons inside, and so did he, of things that when you listen back to the old stuff, it just wasn't quite what we were expecting it to be or wanted it to be. I mean, obviously, you're always happy when the result is there, but when you look back years later, you say, man, I wish we could have done this, or I wish we could have done that. And this has literally been that moment to do what we always wanted to do. Me personally, I wanted my vocals to be better. I didn't want them to all sound like the exact same thing. And some of the concealers, I actually did many different voices. It's just the way that it was mixed and compressed. It all kind of sounds like the same voice. So I wanted to really showcase, other styles, and AL wanted to do the same, bring in other styles, and his dad is a classical composer, so he has a lot of that built into him as well. So I think that's really what he was referring to.
Okay, fair enough. I think at this point, let's cut to a track from the album
Sure.
that you'd like us to play, and the
Sure.
listeners, which track would you recommend and why?
So should it be the single? I don't know. I mean, I love the singles, but I think my favorite song off of the record is actually "Deserving of the Grave." It's the second to last song on the record. I think it was one of the toughest ones lyrically to write, but it also has one of the deepest meanings. Like, you never feel you're good enough for anything, essentially. And you really only deserve shit. So this is about showing the world that, you're worth more than that. But I do really, really enjoy that song. I just listened to that just a few minutes before we jumped on. I was kind of spinning the record because I do have one.
Oh, nice.
So I would suggest "Deserving of the Grave" if you were going to play a song.
Awesome. So here it is. And that was that with Deserving of the Grave. And I'm still talking to Sean. Now,
Hey, how's it going?
I want to touch back on what you said, where, you kind of had an opportunity to kind of further the sound of the band. But let's think about it. In 13 years, so much has changed. And it's not just like the music and the technology, but just everything that is around with the music. I mean, you've been active with other bands, so you've kind of seen that slowly kind of change. How does it feel now to be kind of doing the press, the promotion, the social media, and all of that around? I mean, how much of that has really been a change for you, or it's just been an extension of what you've been doing in
Well,
the
let me
last
say,
few years?
let's just put it to you this way. When I first started with Dååth, we bought a Garmin GPS system for the car, and we actually were navigating with maps because the Garmin couldn't actually direct us to the right routes of the tour. So if that is any indication of how things have changed, everything else has changed along with that, especially social media. I mean, look, you and I right now are doing a Zoom call. In 2007, you got to remember that was not happening. There was Skype, and it was very infantile at best. The quality was horrendous. Not everybody was using it. I guess people had FaceTime, but not everyone had FaceTime. There wasn't this universal social aspect to being in a band. It was kind of just if people didn't know who you were, and like I guess Facebook was kind of a bigger thing back then. That's really all you had. That's really all you had. YouTube was kind of whatever. Bands weren't blowing up on YouTube because of going viral videos. I mean, I think maybe that's right around the Job for a Cowboy SpongeBob era, if you remember that video
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Knee Deep. I mean, that's meme quality. That's what was going on then. So now we're here and we have Instagram and we do have the access to YouTube and the videos and the technology and the communication and Dropbox is better. And it's just, it made everything completely different. And obviously, yeah, like I said, I've been, active with bands. So as I've progressed through the years, that's how we've all stayed in touch and we've done interviews. But as far as for Dååth, it feels weird because it was never like that. It was so archaic. It almost felt like cavemanish, so to speak.
And one thing you kind of missed out, and I'm telling my age now, I used to follow that on MySpace.
Exactly. No, no, dude, that's where we dropped Ovum, and I remember that's where we actually like. I remember because I grew up with Dååth, and I was in the local scene with them, and I'll never forget around this area when they dropped Ovum, they put it on their MySpace page.
I mean, the only thing I'm going to get nostalgic about is remember the time where you could add code and that code would be like a music player. So every time someone went to
Yeah,
your
yeah,
profile,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
music played.
exactly. That's what that was it, and it was on the right side of the page. After
Yeah.
you, it was either above or below the friends. It was like
Yeah.
right there. Oh, yeah, I remember. I remember.
And
We felt
typically if
so
you,
cool.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy that you could kind of customize and do that yourself. And especially if you listen to like something which was, I don't know, had like really heavy drum beats or had like some ominous kind of stuff, it could scare the bejesus out of someone if they
You
just
know what's
showed up on your
what's
profile.
what's interesting is that doesn't really exist anymore. Like there isn't a free customizable. I mean, Bandcamp may be the closest, but there's nothing like Facebook isn't like that. Facebook is just you go to this white blank page and there's not a player playing, but you can probably access the music in some fashion on their page. But yeah, there's nothing really like MySpace. I think that was way ahead of its time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think also what was cool is that the fact that you had that message that would go out to everyone and everyone would kind of see it. And that was still like one of the early, as we call it, the Web 2.0, right? Now you have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
literally like pay to get your messaging out. But
yeah. Everything. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to kind of talk about it, and I'm just going to poke there, is how different does it feel now to be doing that in terms of just like promotion when it comes to that? I mean, of course, we talked about the interviews and stuff like that, but you talked about while before we cut to this in the break about doing an unboxing and stuff like that, right? I mean, it's is that something you enjoy as part of the entire process?
Of course, of course. I mean, this because we in Dååth never like back then. You got to remember, no one gave a shit about anything. So vinyls, no one cared about vinyls in 2008. That wasn't a thing, and that's only been in the last 5, even 10 years, where vinyls have resurfaced, and everyone makes a vinyl and a custom color and a custom artwork. I mean, it was unheard of. Roadrunner was, to ask them to do a vinyl, they would have laughed at you. But nowadays, to have a multicolor vinyl that I'm getting to present for this band, I mean, this band kind of always has been my baby because this was my first introduction into being a true professional musician. So yeah, it feels full circle. It's cool to have Metal Blade on your back, and I think they're the perfect label because they support their generally equally versus a lot of the labels they cash cows. But new bands who are nobody, they're giving them a fair amount of attention, which I have to say, in all of these labels I've been on, not many do that. To You see, we're kind of an established name, so we do get a little more attention than I would say most do. But I look at a lot of what the younger bands are getting or the new guys that they're bringing on, and it's amazing that Metal Blade is so behind the metal scene. I really got to commend them for it. So yeah, it's to summarize, I would say yeah, it's very cool, and I definitely feel extremely good positive energy from being able to promote Dot and all of these avenues. I mean, now you can promote your band on Facebook. It's those things didn't exist. Those things didn't exist.
And it's strange that you talked about Job for a Cowboy earlier because they're also on Metal Blade. And the fact that their album came out and it was so fucking good. I mean, like Moon Healer, I'm not sure if you've heard it, but I really,
I did.
really enjoyed that album.
Yeah.
So very happy. And it feels strange also because, hey, we're in 2024 talking about bands like that, Shop for a Cowboy, and
Oh,
it goes back
boy.
so,
Hey
so
man,
many
they
years.
did the what's the Sick New World, or what was the other? There's
Yeah,
another festival like
I know which
Wish
one you're
You Were
talking.
Here. What was the yeah, it's like all the '90s bands are getting together and doing that one tour, whatever it was called.
Yeah,
When We
yeah.
Were Young, right? Wasn't that what
I
the tour
think
is
so. Yeah,
called or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think everything is kind of making that resurgence. '80s and '90s are popular again, so it's just it's a natural progression of things. I think to relive our old days and have new versions of those things, and then just
Okay. So I have to ask, I mean, since you mentioned that you have been hearing all the way from the time you were with Chimera and stuff like that, people asking you about that. In the past year, since you'll put out No Rest, No End, what's been like a reaction or a moment where you're like, fuck, this really means a lot to people?
I think most of it is when you catch the nostalgic people who come in and man, fuck, this was high school. This reminds me, I read somebody, I think maybe it was in one of the Hex Unending ones. Maybe it was under No Rest, but whatever it was one comment under some single we released off this new iteration. And it had a lot to do with this guy reconnecting because he used to listen to it in the car with his dad, and it brought back all these emotions and feelings. And I think that's really cool to me. That really hits you hard because you say, wow, you know, um, the main writer is still in the band, the guy who wrote all the music. So that's why you'll see the band doesn't sound any different. Those guys contributed a fair amount, but as far as the writing of the core material, AL has always been that person. So it's very cool that we still have the sound. We still have those melodies that get stuck in your ear that make you feel emotion. When you hear it, you get hit with like that whenever you watch a nostalgic video and that stupid song plays that they show on Instagram, and everyone, they're like, here's an empty mall in the 90s, and then they play that song, you're like, ah, I know you know it because I see it all. It's like in every reel, it's the same feel. it's showing a 90s video with that nostalgic feel, except with new sounds, new technology, new tones, new material. And I think that's probably been some of the coolest parts to me to connect with those old nostalgic fans because I feel it too. Those even listening to Concealers, I mean, those bring back memories. I mean, even Hinderers. I remember growing up with that record because I've known this band since late '90s. That's about when they were starting to get together here, and right around when I moved here. So it's very cool, man.
Awesome. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're expecting this question, so let's do it. What's the plan for performing live? Is there any shows or anything that you can talk of at the moment?
There's no shows planned, but I mean, there's nothing to really not talk of. I mean, obviously we have to tour. That's how labels work. They sign you, you make an album, they expect you to tour. So
Yeah.
that will come. It's just a matter of they understood when they brought us all together. Hey, we all come from different places. We all have different things going on in our lives, just as most bands, but we're not like that 18-year-old band, 20-year-old guys who this is all they have. I mean, people have jobs, people have other bands. So the idea is when all the stars align, we get together. If we have to move on and do like, let's say this amazing tour happens and we can't get one of the members, we'll find someone to fill in. Ideally, we want everybody there, but as long as AL and I guess, are there, those are the core. You obviously need the main writer and you need the vocalist to sound the same. But other than that, I think the idea is within the next year, we should all hopefully step on the stage together as one. And maybe maybe one person can't make it or something, but the idea is to have everyone there.
Awesome. So definitely something to look forward to for everyone
Absolutely.
listening in. And yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I keep talking to certain bands and saying that, there were people who were in their teenage when that was still around or playing, and now they're like parents or they've grown older. So who are they coming to the show with, right? That would be interesting. I mean, the guy you referred to
Yeah,
in the
they're
YouTube
kids.
comments, does he
Yeah,
get
yeah.
his dad or does he get his kid along? That'll be interesting to see, right?
I would imagine a lot of these people are going to bring kids. I remember when we did that Dragon Force tour, with Dååth, there were so many kids at those shows because Dragon Force and
Oh yeah.
Guitar Hero was huge at that time, especially around like '09, '08. And
Yeah.
you would have 10-year-old kids at these shows and be like, this is my first metal concert, So those kids even as well have grown up. So it's just, to me, it's interesting to be able to see that kind of, I guess, transition.
Okay, I'm gonna call it a wraps for now, but hopefully we get a chance to speak sometime soon. Thanks so much for getting
Sure.
nostalgic with me and speaking to me.
Of
But
course.
any final words you have for all the listeners?
No, thanks for having me on. This new record is incredible. Make sure to go pick it up. We definitely handled with care all of people's memories and nostalgic feelings. So those are present all throughout the record. So never fear. But this is definitely one of the best things I've done vocally. So thanks for listening and definitely go check it out.
Great. Thanks so much, Sean.
Of course, Peter. Of course.
Definitely looking forward to what you guys have up next.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for all the great questions, and I hope to see you out there, man. I hope to come to India one day and be out there and see you in the crowd.
That was Sean from Dååth. Really enjoyed my chat with him and just kind of getting nostalgic also about the MySpace days and much more. As always, if you enjoyed the single that I played from the track Deserving of the Grave, I've left the link to the album and merch and much more in the show notes. Do check it out. That's all for me. Maybe we'll have a second episode in another few days. Still working on that idea, but as always, if you want to stay tuned to when the new episodes are out, hit subscribe if you're listening so far. Leave me a rating on Spotify and follow me on social media. I'm Trendcrusher on Instagram. See you all very soon. Cheers.